Hello everyone, welcome to 100M Daily Podcast.
Today news, we as Israel strikes Iranian commanders orchestrating Hamas. Attacks the details Israel's claims of killing Saeed Izzadi, a senior Iranian commander responsible for coordinating with Palestinian militant groups like Hamas and instrumental in their arming and financing, including the October 7, 2023 attack. The report also mentions the killing of Behnam Shariari, another Quds Force commander involved in transporting missiles to proxy groups. These alleged assassinations are presented as a significant blow to the IRGC amidst an escalating conflict between Israel and Iran, which has seen both nations launch recent attacks, and Iran reiterate its stance on nuclear talks. The sources additionally highlight international reactions and concerns regarding potential U.S. involvement and the broader implications for regional security. I would empathic the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran involves several key players and distinct objectives. As detailed in the sources, key players 1. Israel, represented by the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, and Israeli officials 1. Iran, encompassing the Iranian government, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps' IRGC Quds Force, and Iranian officials including Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi 1. Hamas, a Palestinian armed group 1. Hezbollah, a Lebanese group 4. United States, with figures like Donald Trump suggesting involvement, and reports indicating U.S. military considerations. 5. United Kingdom, marked by new attacks from both sides and significant blows too. The IRGC for Israel single quotes as objectives and actions. Eliminating key figures involved in attacks against Israel, Israel stated it killed Saeed Izzadi, a senior Iranian commander in the IRGC's Quds Force, whom it described as one of the orchestrators of the Hamas, the 7th of October 2023, attack that killed about 1,200 people and resulted in many hostages. 1. The IDF called this a tremendous intelligence and operational achievement 2. Disrupting arms supply and coordination. Israel also reported killing another Quds Force commander, Behnam Shariari, who was responsible for transporting missiles and rockets to Iran's proxy groups like Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon. 3-4. Targeting military infrastructure. Israel stated it was targeting military infrastructure in southwest Iran for addressing nuclear concerns. There are reports that the U.S. is moving stealth bombers, which are the only aircraft capable of striking Iran's most heavily fortified nuclear sites, as it considers military action against Iran. 6. Iran's objectives and actions, supporting regional proxy groups. Iran, through the IRGC's Quds Force, maintained ties with and provided military coordination, arming, and financing to Palestinian armed groups with at least one Iranian drone impact reported in Israeli airspace for opposing U.S. involvement. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi stated that any U.S. involvement in the conflict would be very, very dangerous. 5. Leveraging nuclear talks. Iran has indicated it will not resume talks over its nuclear program until Israel's strikes. Conducting attacks against Israel, Hamas carried out the 7th of October 2023 attack on southern Israel. 1. Receiving support from Iran. Hamas received arming, financing, military coordination, missiles, and rockets from Iranian commanders like Saeed Izzadi and Behnam Shariari 3-4. United States. Potential objectives and actions, pressuring Iran on its nuclear program. Donald Trump suggested involvement in Israel's strikes and stated that Tehran had a maximum of 2 weeks to avoid possible American airstrikes if they did not negotiate on their nuclear program. 5. Considering military action. The U.S. is reportedly moving stealth bombers as it considers military action against Iran's nuclear sites. 6. United Kingdom's role. The UK's role is described in terms of diplomacy, although sources question if it will make any difference. 7. Keep_pin. 2. Noticapi_all, thumb_up, thumb_down. How does the killing of Iranian commanders impact regional power dynamics and future strategies? The recent killings of senior Iranian commanders Saeed Izzadi and Behnam Shariari by Israel could have significant impacts on regional power dynamics and future strategies. 1. Key impacts on regional power dynamics and future strategies. Major blow to the IRGC and its operations. Saeed Izzadi was identified by the Israel Defense Forces IDF as a senior Iranian commander who helped plan the Hamas the 7th of October 2023 attack on southern Israel, stating he was one of the orchestrators. 1. The IDF also claimed that the blood of thousands of Israelis is on his hands. 2. Izadi was in charge of the Palestine Corps of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, Corps, IRGC, Quds, Force, responsible for handling ties with Palestinian armed groups. 2. He was reportedly instrumental in arming and financing Hamas and was responsible for military coordination between senior IRGC commanders and Hamas leaders. 3. Behnam Shariari, another Quds Force commander, was responsible for transporting missiles and rockets to Iran's proxy groups across the region, including Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon. 3-4, if confirmed. These assassinations represent a major blow to the IRGC. 4. The targeting of Quds Force commanders also shows a growing security breach in Iranian intelligence security. 2. This could significantly disrupt the IRGC's operational capabilities. Its ability to support and coordinate with its proxies, arming, financing, and coordinating with Hamas. And Shariari's responsibility for transporting weapons to both Hamas and Hezbollah. Their deaths are likely to disrupt these supply lines and coordination efforts. 34. This may force support in conducting operations, escalation of the conflict. The attacks come as the conflict with both sides launching new attacks for the IDF called Izadi's killing, lead to a more intensified and direct conflict between Israel and Iran, potentially altering the strategic calculus for both nations. Iran's response and stance on nuclear talks. Iran has not reported Mr. Izadi's killing and has previously denied involvement in Hamas's attack. 2. Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, stated that any U.S. involvement in the conflict would be very, very dangerous. 5. He also indicated that Iran would not resume talks over its nuclear program until Israel's strikes stopped. 5. This suggests a hardening of Iran's position, potentially impacting international diplomatic efforts. Potential for us. Involvement. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has suggested U.S. involvement in Israel's strikes on Iran. Airstrikes if they did not negotiate on their nuclear program. 5. Reports also indicate the U.S. is moving stealth bombers, which are the only aircraft capable of striking Iran's most heavily fortified nuclear sites. 6. The possibility of direct U.S. military action could drastically alter regional power dynamics and Iran's future strategies. Asterisk. Please listen to podcast analyzing deep dive.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to help cut through the noise, navigate these really complex global events, and hopefully bring you some clarity, maybe even some surprising insights.
Yeah, absolutely.
So today we are plunging right into a situation that's, well, escalating incredibly quickly.
Yeah.
The conflict between Israel and Iran.
It's moving fast.
It really is. We've gone through the sources you've provided, articles, research, our own notes, and our goal today, our mission, is to pull out the absolute must-know insights for you. We're really going to focus on the latest events, who the key players actually are, and, the implications, which are pretty profound.
And they really are far-reaching.
We're now, 9 days into this really intense situation, and recent events are being described as key points in this whole conflict.
Yeah, that's the phrase going around. To really get a handle on the intensity right now, I think we need to start with some of the most recent and, frankly, quite striking developments.
Agreed. And what's really striking, I think, is how quickly things are shifting, especially with these reported eliminations of key figures.
Yeah.
It feels like a new phase, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It signals something different is happening.
So, okay,
Yeah.
Let's start there. Our information points to two pretty significant reported eliminations.
Yeah.
First up, Saeed Izadi.
Right.
Israel claims they killed him. It was apparently in a strike on an apartment in Qum. That was on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
They identify him as a senior Iranian commander within the IRGC, that's Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps.
Specifically the Quds Force, their sort of external operations arm.
Exactly. And Izadi was reportedly in charge of the Palestine Corps,
Yeah.
handling the ties with Palestinian armed groups.
And this is where it connects to the bigger picture. Israel alleges he was, and this is their quote, one of the orchestrators of that devastating Hamas attack on October 7th, 2023.
The one that killed about 1,200 people, took so many hostages. Just horrific.
Absolutely horrific. And the IDF chief, Eyal Zamir, he didn't mince words. He called this a tremendous intelligence and operational achievement.
Wow.
Yeah, really emphasizing how important they saw this target. Zamir claimed the blood of thousands of Israelis is on his hands.
So Israel is
Yeah.
saying Izadi was instrumental in arming, financing, coordinating between the IRGC and Hamas leaders. A real linchpin figure.
That's the claim, a linchpin. And it's also worth noting, he apparently survived a previous Israeli airstrike. Remember the one on the Iranian consulate in Damascus back in April?
I do remember that. So they've been targeting figures like this for a while.
Seems so. Persistent targeting.
But, and this is where it gets complicated, right? Iran hasn't reported his killing.
No official word from Tehran.
And they've always consistently denied any involvement in Hamas' October 7th attack. So straight away, we have these completely conflicting accounts.
Very conflicting. Which raises the question, what does Iran's silence on Azadi actually tell us? Is it about managing how things look at home? Is it about maintaining denial internationally, or something else?
That's a really good question. What do you think?
Well, it could be strategic, couldn't it? Maybe they don't want to admit a major intelligence failure, that Israel got so close. Or maybe it's about maintaining that plausible deniability regarding direct operational links to Hamas.
Right. Admitting they lost such a high-level guy would imply a level of involvement they keep saying they don't have.
Exactly. It's classic shadow war stuff. You see this ambiguity all the time.
And Azadi isn't the only one we need to talk about. Israel also claims they killed another Quds force commander, Behnam Shariari.
That's right, Shariari. Killed, reportedly, in a drone strike in western Iran.
And his alleged role.
Also, pretty significant, according to the reports, he was supposedly responsible for moving weapons, missiles, rockets to Iran's various proxy groups.
So groups like Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Yeah.
The ones Iran supports to project its influence across the region.
Precisely. So if these assassinations are confirmed, really confirmed, it's a massive blow to the IRGC.
Huge. It suggests, a growing security breach inside Iran?
Potentially, yes. A significant intelligence penetration. It could force Iran to completely rethink its internal security, maybe even how it manages its external proxy relationships. It really could signal a major shift in this covert war.
It's a lot to process. The sheer number of these strikes, the claims, the counterclaims, it just speaks volumes about the intensity right now.
It really does.
And beyond these very specific targeted actions, the bigger picture shows a conflict that's just widening. We said 9 days in, and now we're seeing both sides taking more direct, more aggressive actions.
Indeed. We're seeing reports of Israel targeting military infrastructure, specifically in southwest Iran.
Okay.
And on the other side, Iran reported that Israel actually targeted a nuclear facility near Isfahan. That's a major claim.
Whoa, okay. A nuclear facility.
That's what Iran reported. They also claimed at least one impact from their own drones that apparently entered Israeli airspace. So, it's moving beyond just these surgical strikes. It feels like broader military engagements now.
Okay, so let's pull back for a second. Look at the key players. How do these tactical shifts, like the reported eliminations we just discussed, how do they change the game, the strategy for each side? What's everyone trying to achieve now, do you think?
Well, for Israel, the objectives seem pretty clear based on their actions and statements. Eliminate key figures like Azadi and Shariari to disrupt command structure.
Right, decapitate the leadership.
Exactly. And disrupt arms supply lines to groups like Hamas and Hezbollah.
Yeah.
Target military infrastructure to weaken their capabilities overall. And then there's this underlying goal, always there, of addressing Iran's nuclear program, which we definitely need to get into.
Okay. And Iran, what's their calculus?
Iran's trying to balance, I think. On one hand, they want to keep supporting their regional allies, their proxies, that's key to their influence. But on the other, they have to resist these direct Israeli strikes and defend their own territory. It's a tough balancing act.
And Hamas and Hezbollah are caught in this too, obviously receiving that Iranian support, acting as, extensions of Iran's power in the region.
They're key parts of Iran's regional strategy, yes.
And then looming over all of this, the United States. Their potential involvement, especially when it comes to Iran's nuclear ambitions, is always a huge factor.
Always. We even heard former President Trump suggesting some level of U.S. involvement in Israel's recent strikes.
Right. Before we dive deeper into that whole nuclear dimension, though, I think it's really important we just pause and acknowledge the human cost here.
Absolutely crucial.
The sources we looked at paint a really grim picture. Iran has reported officially over 430 deaths. Some human rights groups say the unofficial number might be closer to 657.
A huge disparity and a terrible toll either way.
And Israel has reported 25 casualties. It's a stark reminder of the real-world impact of all these geopolitical moves.
It really is. And that brings us quite starkly to the nuclear aspect. This is where the international implications get, extremely serious.
Oh, so?
Well, Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, he made a very explicit statement. He said Iran would not resume talks about its nuclear program until Israel stops these strikes.
Okay, so directly linking the nuclear negotiations to the current military actions.
Directly. And remember, Iran's claim about Israel targeting that nuclear facility near Isfahan, it all starts to connect.
Yeah, that context makes Araghchi's statement even more significant. And this is where the U.S. factor becomes really potent, isn't it?
Extremely. You mentioned Trump suggesting U.S. involvement. He also reportedly gave Tehran a deadline, didn't he? Something like 2 weeks.
Yeah, a maximum of 2 weeks, he said, to avoid potential American airstrikes if they didn't come back to the negotiating table on the nuclear program.
That's incredibly direct language. And then you combine that with these reports about the U.S. moving stealth bomber.
The ones described as the only aircraft capable of striking Iran's most heavily fortified nuclear sites.
Exactly. That paints a very, very stark picture. It almost feels like drawing a line in the sand. It really raises serious questions about red lines, doesn't it? Are there any left?
It certainly feels like they're being tested or maybe erased. And Iran's foreign minister responded pretty quickly, right? Warning any U.S. involvement would be very, very dangerous.
Yes, a clear warning shot back.
And all these developments, they just create massive problems, huge dilemmas for other countries, like the UK, for instance. Our sources suggest there are real questions about whether diplomacy can even work effectively right now, almost a sense of futility.
There's definitely frustration there, and it feeds into this broader anxiety. You had Tulsi Gabbard raising concerns recently, suggesting Iran could potentially produce a nuclear weapon within weeks.
Right, which just ramps up the international tension around Iran's capabilities and what that means for global security.
It absolutely does. The potential for a nuclear dimension just elevates the stakes dramatically for everyone involved. It shifts this whole thing from being just a regional fight to something with potentially catastrophic global consequences. It's the risk factor nobody can ignore.
So wrapping this up, what does all this really mean for you, our listener? I think this deep dive has really shown how multifaceted, how rapidly evolving this Israel-Iran conflict truly is.
It's changing almost daily.
It feels like it. These reported assassinations of key commanders, combined with the rising rhetoric, the alleged targeting near nuclear sites, it creates an incredibly volatile situation. The consequences clearly stretch far beyond just the Middle East.
Definitely global implications.
So maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. Given the direct targeting of commanders, this escalating talk around nuclear capabilities, what does this particular moment, this escalation, suggest about the red lines in this power struggle? Or maybe more worryingly, the absence of red lines? And how might that shape the way the world engages with both Israel and Iran going forward? Something for you to really mull over as you process all this information.